I never thought I'd find myself facing down a woman with a clipboard and a vendetta, but here we are. That morning, Veronica Steinberg, the president of our HOA, rolled up in a shiny BMW, wearing heels that probably cost more than my entire house. She was with a group of over 40 people, and they all piled out of charter buses as if they had just landed on my land like they owned the place. "You can't exclude us from community property," she shrieked, her words sharp like a blade in the quiet morning air. I watched, fuming, as her expensive shoes sunk into the mud of my family's lakefront property, the very land my grandfather bought and worked for nearly 60 years ago. And what was her big issue? She had the audacity to bring a herd of strangers to fish on my private lake. People who didn't care about the legacy of the land. They just saw an opportunity to make their wealthy HOA president's dreams come true. For 2 years, Veronica had been relentless. She tried everything: fake surveys, twisted facts, even hired lawyers to strong-arm me into giving up what was mine. But she didn't understand that I wasn't some gullible old man who would just roll over for her. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything my family had built. You might think this sounds like a typical HOA dispute, but let me tell you, this was personal. This woman was messing with the wrong guy. I'm Marcus Fontaine, 52 years old, and for 30 years, I ran an electrical contracting business solving problems that no one else could figure out. Complex systems, high-stakes emergency repairs, and always keeping my cool no matter how tough things got. I sold the business last year and moved back to the family property, a place where I'd spent my childhood fishing, playing, and making memories with my grandfather. It was my sanctuary. But now, it had become a battlefield. Veronica didn't care that my family had been here long before the HOA even existed. The land was ours, bought in 1962, and the lake that ran through it was spring-fed and pristine. It was a symbol of my grandfather's hard work, and no amount of threats or legal threats would make me back down. But that didn't stop Veronica from trying to bully me. She had become the HOA president just 6 months after moving in, and soon after, she was bulldozing through the neighborhood with complaints about fences, trash cans, and anything she could find. Then came the spring day when she came over, all fake concern and predatory smile, to tell me that my lake was breeding mosquitoes. The woman was a lawyer, but she couldn't even get her facts straight. The real issue was that the lake didn't breed mosquitoes. It was too clean. But Veronica, with her legal pad in hand like it was a weapon, wasn't here for facts. She was here for control. She suggested I install a $15,000 filtration system to fix a problem that didn't exist. Of course, I declined, politely but firmly. That's when the harassment started. 2 days later, the county sent someone out to inspect the water. I greeted the inspector with a knowing look, and he quickly assured me that the water was cleaner than most municipal supplies. It didn't matter. Veronica wasn't interested in facts. She wanted something else, and I was starting to realize she wasn't going to stop until she got it. A month went by, and the pressure only increased. Veronica filed complaint after complaint, sending county inspectors to my property to test water quality. She even tried to get the local health department involved. It felt like an unrelenting barrage. But here's the thing about electricians. We don't just fix problems on the surface. We trace the issue back to its source. And when someone's trying to shock you, you don't just fix the short circuit. You find a breaker and shut everything down. So I did what I do best. I started digging, and what I found shocked me. Veronica wasn't worried about the lake, the mosquitoes, or the health of the community. She was drowning in debt, bad investments, second mortgages, maxed out credit cards. She was using the HOA in my land to cover up her own financial problems. The lake was her ticket out, a way to force me to sell it for pennies on the dollar, so she could flip the property for a profit. I had a choice to make. Let her steal my grandfather's legacy or fight back. And I wasn't about to let some overambitious, financially desperate woman steal what my family had worked for. I took action. First, I installed cameras around the property to document every movement. Then I put up signs, real legal notices citing state statutes on trespassing. I even printed out fines for false complaints. I knew that if I wanted to protect my property, I had to make the cost of her actions clear. But Veronica didn't back off. She escalated her campaign. The county sent a bogus surveyor to my property to try and prove that the boundaries of my land weren't where they should be. He was a joke. His equipment was ancient, and his credentials were worse than that. I dug into his background and found that he was a fraud with a record for incompetence and false reporting. So I did what any good electrician would do. I exposed him for what he was. Then Veronica went further, sending her wealthy friends onto my property, trespassing without permission. The next few weeks were filled with legal notices, police reports, and a whole lot of paperwork. But here's the kicker. Every single trespass was caught on camera. Every single violation was documented. At the same time, I recruited a team. I contacted a local journalist, Jake, who specialized in exposing scams. I enlisted Dorothy, my 78-year-old neighbor, whose memory was sharper than a tack. I called in a forensic surveyor who'd proved the fraudulent nature of the bogus surveys. Together, we built a case that would expose Veronica for the fraud she was. And then came the breakthrough. Veronica tried to bribe one of the county inspectors to alter his report. When I found out, I knew this was my chance to bring her down for good. I filed a report with Internal Affairs, and everything fell into place. Veronica's reign of terror was about to end. But she didn't stop. She tried to manipulate the HOA and turn them against me. She spread rumors, filed fake reports, and tried to ruin my reputation. But she didn't count on me using her own game against her. I recorded every meeting, every conversation, and every lie she told. I gathered all the evidence I needed. The final blow came when I exposed her at the HOA annual meeting. I stood up, took control of the projector, and began showing the community what Veronica had been hiding. The forged documents, the lies, and the attempt to steal my property, all laid bare. The room was silent as I connected the dots between her fraudulent actions and her financial ruin. And then came the moment of justice. Veronica had no choice but to admit her guilt in front of the entire neighborhood. Her plan had backfired, and the truth had finally come to light. The HOA voted to remove her, and law enforcement took over from there. In the end, Veronica was arrested for real estate fraud, bribery, and conspiracy. She was sentenced to federal prison, and her criminal empire crumbled. But the true victory wasn't just watching her downfall. It was reclaiming my family's legacy. Watching the community heal and knowing that my grandfather's lake was safe once again. What would you do if someone tried to steal your family's legacy? Would you fight back, or would you let them take what's yours? Share your stories, and let's keep this conversation going.